let's talk about table stakes analytics and tracking for law firms. What's the bare minimum that they should have in place, and then what's your like pipe dream analytics look like for a law firm?
I'll break this down into kind of like three parts. I think on the front end, you need to have really solid marketing tracking in place. And so common tools that you're going to use to know where your website traffic is coming from, where leads are coming from, are things like Google Analytics 4. It's a free tool. Set it up, install the code on your website. It's going to start giving you data on where the traffic is coming from, what pages they're interacting with, so on and so forth. CallRail is another one I recommend. There are other call tracking tools, but we like CallRail. That's going to track all your call volume. It's going to track other measures like what campaigns those calls are coming from, what pages of the website people are calling from, if there's a number on there. It can really drill down as granular as the keyword that people typed in that led to a phone call. So that's a really important one. Yeah, I honestly think those two are like enough to start, because with Google Analytics 4, you'll be able to track website form submissions and live chat leads using that tool. And then CallRail will enable you to track the phone calls. Like I'd say the three primary front end marketing metrics that you need to be tracking are phone calls, live chats, and form submissions. Those are like the biggest three to start. So that's number one. That's like the front end marketing tracking. Then I would move on to intake. Intake needs to be tracked. So you need to have some type of VoIP solution that can like listen to the calls, so you can hold your intake team accountable and coach them on, you know, you weren't being very empathetic on this call, or you didn't follow the call flow properly, or you didn't handle the objections well, things like that. So there needs to be some measure in place there so that you can hold your intake team accountable and really critique them more on the qualitative aspects on how they're handling the intake. Um, and you also need a lead management system. So something like Lawmatics or Clio, where you can push all of that lead information into a platform that enables you to keep track of everything, enables you to make sure that you're following up with the leads as they come in, things of that nature. So that's kind of number two, is like having the right intake tracking and infrastructure in place. And then number three is the case management system, right? And in some cases, that's like the intake system and the case management system are the same thing, or they integrate very well together. And that is really just monitoring the progress of the cases that, are coming in, what stage they're in, so on and so forth. I'd say the biggest, I'm going to go on more of a tangent here. The biggest missed opportunity I see with law firms as it pertains to their tracking is they are not attributing where cases are coming from by marketing source. So, for example, I think you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, you had a prospect, now client, that you were speaking with, and they were just saying, yeah, 80% of my cases come from internet. That's a huge junk drawer of cases that you're just throwing into that box, right? And so, wouldn't it be so valuable as a law firm if you can drill down and see, of the $1 million I spent last year, 400,000 of it drove 90% of my case volume? That'd be a game changer. You'd completely rethink how you're allocating budget. You'd completely, you'd end up just taking that extra 600K that didn't do much and redeploy it somewhere else, right? So the way that firms can do that is it's a little more technical, but they can push what's called a Google Click ID into their intake or case management system. And so that Google Click ID will follow the client through the entire life cycle of their case. And so when the settlement checks come in and you're getting a fat check from this case you just settled, you can go back in the case file and see, oh, here's the Google Click ID. This was the originating campaign or tactic or thing that I used to generate this case, and then you can attribute that revenue that you just got back to that marketing source. And that is an oversimplification. It's a lot harder than it sounds, and it's the other thing I'll say is it's a lot more time consuming than it sounds. Like, you need to get that infrastructure in place, but it's going to take you in some cases 2, 3, 4 years in order for you to have that full closed loop reporting. Because some cases can take 4 or 5 years.